We're flesh and blood.
And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D, and we have a returning guest to our program. Very excited to have Patrick Lindley with us here on the program to discuss some very fun stuff. That's kind of what it's all about with Patrick Lindley. And Patrick, we had you on before, and we kind of started out talking about, certainly music. And you are a composer, you're a songwriter, and in a manner of speaking from that standpoint, sort of an innovator because you create. You are what some would refer to as a co-creator because you are trying to add to what we have now to make this world a better place. Good to have you with us.
Oh, good to be here. I enjoyed the last two times a lot. Before we finish, I'd also like to find out what I need to do to access the last two interviews, which I enjoyed, but for some reason have not looked for them. But I assume they're all in one place.
Well, I will see to it that you get the links to all three interviews, the two
Excellent.
previous, and then this one as well. I'll
Great.
send those links to you a little bit later on, and make sure that you are able to watch them. I think you'll enjoy the videos, especially because I added some of your images, your pictures that you sent me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
great.
it was a lot of fun to put together. I really enjoyed that. And as a matter of fact, folks will be hearing some of your music as we move through this particular conversation. And that's something I'd like to maybe touch upon, not just music, but maybe because a lot of people are getting into sound and vibration and tone more than melody and harmony and so forth, because science is starting to prove to us that the vibration we are currently vibrating. You have your own personal vibration, as I have mine, but also there are different parts of our body, different organs and so forth that also have a different resonance, and and those in combination make up the vibration that is Patrick Lindley and that which makes up Richard Dugan. What can you tell us about what you know of in terms of in general, the healing and or human body supportive aspects of sound and tone and vibration, as well as when we take all of that and then you start making music, melody and harmony?
Okay, I first want to speak about a remarkable American musician who grew up in California but spent a lot of time on the East Coast, taught at Juilliard, went to Harvard. His name is Anthony Newman, and he's one of the greatest musicians in our country. He's in his 80s now. He's made many recordings on harpsichord, piano, and organ. He's also recorded his compositions for orchestra, but he also has a very interesting recording called Toning, Toning, and he's been a Zen meditator for decades, as I have been, and he is very much involved in the vibrational world of music, as well as the every other aspect of music. He's an expert on Bach. He's recorded many of the Bach organ works and harpsichord works. He's a very prolific composer, and one of his compositions is a toning CD or streaming, whatever. That there are specific tones that have specific functions according to various traditions. I haven't heard the CD in a long time, but I was very impressed with it when it came out, and this was a number of years ago. But if anybody looking for the perspective of music as vibration and healing, I think should start with that, because I think he's one of the greatest musicians America's ever produced. And he lives now in Fairfield, Connecticut, but he spends a good deal of time in Santa Barbara because he has a sister who lives here. And he's from Los Angeles originally. So his wife is a rabbi, and she's also a harpsichordist and an organist like he is. Her name is Mary Jane Newman, but he's very much a known quantity. He started recording for Columbia Records when he was 19 or 18 or 19. So he was a kind of a child prodigy. He's continued to be a very important musician, and he's explored all of this very, very carefully. I can't. I have a number of cassettes that became CDs that became streaming, um, kind of for the stress reduction market, uh, and so and I created them purposefully to relax people and to use what I call non-threatening harmonies. But I've also written a lot of social protest, super, super contemporary electroacoustic music that scares people to death. I mean, I'll play some of the pieces for them and I say, never play that for me again. It scared the bejesus out of me. And so I write a whole variety of different genres because I can, and I'm considered eclectic in the music world because I've done Christian rock, I've done jazz, I've done lots of classical, I've done lots of interpreting of European dead guys and gals, which is my primary field of expertise, I would say, particularly 18th and 19th century music. So, but I've always, since a very young age, I've got to remember not to talk so quickly, and I have to remember to modulate my tone. Uh, and I have to be conscious of the camera because watching myself in the past, I realized uh, there there are TV personalities who know how to exploit the media, and I'm just beginning in all this. So I sometimes appear to be a robotic zombie with a disembodied voice because my facial expressions don't necessarily, or bodily gestures don't necessarily match whatever I'm saying. But that'll come with time. And the more I do this, the easier it will become. And I don't want to get too silly about it. And so I'm doing this now because I can, and I want to be sure that I'm vivid enough on camera for people to watch me without getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it also has to do with, as you know, varying the speed at which you say things, pausing between things, etc. Now that I use ChatGPT a great deal and Google Genesis, the robot voices will ask me, "Do you want me to speak less conversationally, casual conversation like, and speak to you as though I were giving a college lecture with pauses in between the sentences, et cetera, et cetera?" And I said, "Yes, that would be fine." So I think if you're if you're paying attention to the neuroscientists, two neuroscientists that I follow that write a column in a magazine called uh, Guide for Spiritual Living, Science of Mind magazine. There are two researchers, neuroscientists named Dr. Andrew Newberg, who is an MD, and come on, Mark David Waldman, who was a graphic artist who became a neuroscientist. They read a column called Science and Spirituality. And they explain some, I'm just turning in to a random page. This month's chapter is the power of self-nurturance. Are negative thoughts and feelings stifling your motivation? Is procrastination stopping you from making decisions and taking action? Do you worry about your future? All of these mental states reflect different forms of anxiety and can derail your brain from optimal performance. But you can eliminate that neurological stress by mindfully yawning 5 or 6 times. Put yourself into a deeply relaxed and spiritual state, and you'll boost your self-esteem. And there's another stress reduction strategy rarely discussed: self-nurturance through pleasant touch. Well, I'm not going to amplify on all this just now, but the point is, I'm going to demonstrate something that I learned from them quite a while ago, which is they have this idea from studying neuroscience that the best communicators have the 10 in 10 rule, 10 words in not 10 minutes, but 10 words in a very short space of time, because they say the part of the brain that communicates most easily has a very short attention span. So if you condense as much communication like we do in texting into the smallest number of words, you pack as much information into the smallest number of words. I suppose like a haiku would in Japanese poetry, or an aphorism would with when you're dealing with great minds of the past, philosophers and writers like Balzac and Dickens, etc. There are aphorisms that contain a lot of information in maybe 5 or 6 words. So basically, what I'm saying is I like communicating well. There, I paused. I like communicating with others well.
That is one of the aspects that we kind of want to talk about here on the program in terms of our ability to communicate. And you and I both know that one of the scariest things for most people, and of course, statistically speaking, they will say it's public speaking. Well, that may be true also, but it's also singing in front of people. But I heard something not long ago, and I was absolutely blown away when I heard this. That when we are talking, it's considered singing.
Yes, I may have mentioned this before.
Yeah.
People that say to me, "Oh, I'm tone deaf, I can't sing." I said, "If you're speaking to me now, you are actually singing, because I can stop for a minute and tell you every pitch that you just produced."
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the context of timing influences how people are going to absorb whatever the words are that you're speaking. But even if you were to go blah 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 blah, you can convey all kinds of emotional things by the speed and the tones. And if you're thinking about a language like Mandarin Chinese, there are 12 tones, and you have to use the tones properly in order to be understood. If you say ni hao ma, it has to be ni hao ma, boom, 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 which is you go down an octave and then a note in the middle. Ni hao ma, you have to say ni hao ma. You say ni hao ma, that doesn't mean the same thing. It means something completely different. Or it means nothing at all. It's gibberish.
It's the equivalent of it's the equivalent of slurring.
Yes, I suppose it is.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
So the fact is that all language is in fact singing.
Yeah. Now we're gonna jump tracks here just a little bit as we continue. We're talking with Patrick Lindley. Do you have a PhD, and is it in the music area?
I have given myself several PhDs from my own university, which is in my own mind at the moment. Not in cyberspace, not in reality. No, I have 2 master's degrees. One is in harpsichord performance, and one is in musicology.
Well,
I fell short of getting a doctorate because when I was teaching at Cal State LA, I taught theory there for a while as well as harpsichord. And they tried to convince me to get a doctorate in theory. And I said to myself, the last thing I want to do is study other people's music and other people's performance of other people's music. I want to perform. It's taken me long enough to gain a certain mastery of the keyboard. I don't want to give that up to be talking about other people's performances of other people's music and other people's theories about other people's music and other people's performing of other people's music. I just didn't find that intriguing at all. I mean, I like music theory, but I'm not a musical theorist. There are people, for instance, who study the watermarks in all of the Mozart symphonies. In other words, they determine by the watermarks what time of day that this piece of music was written, each movement, each page, whatever. It's interesting, but I don't want to spend my life doing that. I never did.
Hmm.
Call me anti-academic in that sense, I suppose. Because, and to be fair, now that I'm officially retired from academia, I have always felt to some extent, this is not quite fair, and it's maybe a somewhat cynical way of looking at education in general. But as far as I can tell, basically, education involves jumping through hoops for other people
Hmm.
for a piece
Yeah.
of paper, which certifies you as perhaps an expert in something or perhaps knowledgeable about some field or all fields if you're a polymath, or no fields if you're not a particularly good student.
Yeah.
So, but it does, if you have a doctorate, it does get you in the door lots of places that won't
Yeah.
accept you as an academician if you don't have a doctorate. So the short answer to that is no, I have a doctorate, but it's a self-awarded doctorate
Ah.
and self-administered and self-monitored, which is the best kind of doctorate to have, in my not so humble opinion.
Well, mine is in an area of study that is not available anywhere, and it is a PhD in eclectic studies. That in the 47 years that I've been doing this, I
Yes.
have produced, according to calculations that I did about a month or two ago, I have produced between 70 and 80,000 programs,
Oh God, that's great.
and it's been across the board.
It
uh,
should be.
the
We're
education that I've gotten at the different radio stations with the different programs. And that's one of the reasons I love doing this kind of a program. We're going to continue our doctorate studies here in just a moment as we continue talking with Patrick Lindley here on Tell Me Your Story. are going to talk now about, I asked you earlier about vibration and tone and so forth and its effect on the human body. And I find it fascinating. One of the studies that was done was called the Mozart effect, which we'll talk about
Yeah.
later, but I found that fascinating. And obviously my very first question was always, every time I would talk to people, is why Mozart? Why not Bach, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? We'll go there later. But this is fascinating to me because it raises some interesting questions. Here's a general marvel to start your day, folks. MIT researchers have found that seeds can actually sense the sound of rain, which I sat there when I first read that, going, duh. And it's helps them sprout faster. And in experiments at MIT, rice seeds exposed to the gentle pattern of water droplets woke from dormancy, the seeds that is, and grew up to 40% faster than seeds left in silence. Now, if you are a farmer and you're planting seeds out in the field, there is no real silence, okay? There's the sound of nature, whether there's rain or not, right? So I'm sitting here going, why would you subject seeds to utter silence in a soundproof room if that's what they did? But it fascinated me because the secret lies in the tiny structures inside the seeds called, I believe it's a stataoliths, I think, or oliths. And when rain hits the ground or a puddle, it creates vibrations that jostle these things. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again, sending a signal to the seed that it's time to grow. It's time to wake up. And it's a reminder that even the smallest life forms are tuned into the world around them in ways that we've only begun to understand, which raises that one question I've always asked. It's a broad one. And then you, my friend, can dive in. And that is that nature is our greatest teacher.
I couldn't agree more. I'll say this is maybe 45 years ago, maybe 50 years ago. There was an article, maybe in Time Magazine or Newsweek, can't remember which. Maybe it was another magazine, it could have been Atlantic Monthly, but I think it was one that had lots of pictures in it as well. And they would put a sound generator in a wheat field or a cornfield.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is they accelerated the growing process significantly. But what also happened is that the corn and the wheat was inedible for humans. So clearly the formula that they used made it grow faster, but the wheat was valueless in terms of being able to, humans being able to eat it. Maybe animals could eat it. I don't know. But that was at least 50 years ago. Sound generators put in a wheat field and or a corn field, and it did accelerate the growth process significantly. But the resulting food stuff was it was inedible. Now you'd figure in 50 years from now they'd probably discovered how to improve the sounds that they were presenting to the wheat field, and maybe the wheat would be perfectly edible. So that's as much as I know about it,
Yeah.
and that was 50 years ago.
Well, and to me, it's fascinating because we've got companies, no names, please, that are using chemistry to, I'm going to say, adulterate our food supply. And
Yeah.
I've seen way too many of these documentaries about the various different elements in the pyramid triangle, if you will, that we have destroyed. There was a matter of fact, there was a documentary I just saw about a guy from England who was doing this test, similar to the guys here in the United States. The one guy, of course, who ate Subway for 30 days. Another guy who ate McDonald's for 30 days. Well, this guy focused on fried chicken. And in England, in London in particular, there are hundreds, if not several thousand fast food fried chicken places. Many of them are from the United States, and others, and so forth. And he got into the 14th and 15th day And by the way, he did a medical exam prior to starting it, and he was absolutely perfectly healthy, no problems. But when he got to the 30th day and he went in for his exam, he was pre-diabetic. He'd gained some significant weight. He was moody. I mean, the list went on. And it turns out, as he investigated, and he flew to the States and he tried to get interviews with people from some of the chicken producers and so forth, and then the companies that produce the fast food, elements. And some of them would talk to him. Some of them wouldn't even would have nothing to do with him. But what he found out from some researchers is that the chicken that we eat today, sometimes even in the grocery store, in the meat and poultry and that area of the along the side of the grocery store, years ago it had great flavor, but today there is no flavor because they have done some damaging things to the growing process of chickens, to where the chickens grow bigger and faster. It used to take 16 to 18 weeks for a chicken to mature before it would be butchered. Now it's 6. And they're bigger at 6 weeks than even when they went to 18 weeks. So, he learned a lot more than he really wanted to. But it's fascinating to me that there are ways to circumvent that. Now, certainly if you grow your own, that's terrific. But we all can't do that. Some of us live in a city and we can't have a garden, can't have chickens, can't have a cow, can't have a steer, and then have it butchered. But people are using vibration. You may be familiar with a gentleman by the name of Royal Raymond Rife and the Rife frequency generator. Oh my goodness.
The Rife generator, I've heard of that somehow.
Yeah. I actually was the narrator for their DVD back in 2005. They asked me to voice their DVD. I still have a copy of it. And it was fascinating how he was able to find the frequencies for, let's just say, cancer. Now, he had to use an electron microscope in order to be able to view living tissue. And he was able to identify the vibration of the cancer cell. And then he used his Rife frequency generator to create the counter. Now, you and I both, I'm sure, that if you have a true stereo wave on your sound editing software, where you've got, let's say, bugle and drums and violin on the left channel, and you've got harmonica and banjo and vocals on the right channel, and you take one of those channels out of phase and you mix them together mono, whatever are the dissimilar frequencies or sounds, they come to the forefront and the similar go to the background. So if you were to take a song like the Eagles Hotel California, and you did that to it, all the vocals would go to the back. So what you've done is you've created a karaoke version of Hotel California. Well, in this case, it's a similar left-right signal. So you take the one signal out of phase, you mix them together, and guess what happens? There's nothing there because they cancel each other out. And that's what he did with his frequency generator. And today, in the 21st century, there are a lot of people who are using this kind of technology to help themselves. I mean, there was a company, by the way, EMC Squared, have nothing to do with Einstein, with Stephen Lewis, who wrote a book called Sanctuary. I interviewed him many years ago, and we were actually on his program. We provided a photograph, Patrick. We provided a photograph, head to toe, and we sent it to him. And then he put that into the computer, and he was actually able, and it reminds me of the old Native American prohibition about taking one's photograph, right?
Yeah,
he would take that and he could find those out of balance frequencies, create the balancing frequency, not the counter, but the balancing frequency. because we don't want to cancel them out. And he could get you back into balance as far as those things are concerned. Have you ever heard of anything along these lines? And what are your thoughts in terms of, let's say, the music that you create? Because obviously what you create, you like, otherwise you wouldn't be creating it. It sounds good to you in your ear and in your mind and in your imagination. So you're having an impact on yourself and in your brain waves and in your imagination and so forth. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know a fair amount about this because I did several cassettes and CDs for the so-called New Age market,
Mm-hmm.
and which is for some people pseudoscience, but for other people it's scientific experimentation. And when I was 20, maybe 19 or 20, I read an important book that I thought was important at the time and still do, Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And I realized from reading this book, as well as from other books that I was reading, that uh, science and spirituality, if you will, or science and religions, or medicine and religion were getting closer and closer together, would get closer and closer together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely already happened. And in terms of sound healing, this has been around for centuries
Mm-hmm.
in an intuitive way. And now, to give you a perfect example, not just about sound, but just about studying consciousness in the first place scientifically, John Kabat-Zinn, who founded the Mind Body Wellness Institute in the University of Amherst in Massachusetts, he was a molecular biologist. That's what he studied it when he went to MIT. He was from New York City, and he's one of the foremost experts on meditation and stress reduction in the world. And at the time he started studying meditation, science did not see fit at that time to study uh, meditation and consciousness. I'll say consciousness seriously. Now they do. They put electrodes onto people's brains. Cross culturally, they discover that atheists who have no belief in a personal God, but they want to solve the world's obvious problems such as hunger, war, poverty, etc. They're interested in exploring the big questions. One group like that, transcendental meditation people, followers of Maharishi Yogi, who get a mantra that they repeat every day and meditate with. Nuns who get married to Jesus with a white wedding dress and wedding ring. And they want to get closer to Jesus as much as they can because the idea for becoming a nun in the Catholic Church is that you become the bride of Jesus, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what that says about whether the priests and brothers also become brides of Jesus. I doubt whether they would look at it that way, but it's reasonable to assume that the supposedly, and this is a little bit of a digression, but in the Catholic Church, the idea is that, uh, for instance, you take in the Old Testament the Song of Songs, which is it's erotic love poetry in the Old Testament. It's clearly by a woman, a young woman, and a young man who have just gotten married, and they're hot to trot all the time, to be vulgar about it. Uh, and but but the Catholic Church kind of euphemizes that, makes it euphemistic, the idea that the depiction of erotic or romantic love between human beings is the corollary or the prefiguring of uh, Christ's relation with Holy Mother Church. In other words, Jesus and Holy Mother Church are bride and groom. And you have corollaries in other world religions. The Hindus certainly believe in the female principle and the male principle getting together. The whole yin yang thing is the idea of the so-called positive and negative forces uniting in the
Mm-hmm.
same circle that's separated by a squiggly thing. That one thing implies the other. The yin implies yang, up implies down, right implies left. And that's the way our brains are constructed, according to Buddhist psychology and maybe Hindu psychology as well. And consequently, the idea that polar opposites can unite in many ways. These are all sort of esoteric ideas. But anyway, back to the my point about all this is that these very new neuroscientists that I was mentioning before, Andrew Newberg and Andrew, oh God, now I've forgotten the name, Mark David Waldman, sorry, and Andrew Newberg, MD. They've studied this kind of thing for a long time, and they have discovered just what you were talking about, that that the now I've lost my train of thought. So sorry, senior moment there. I know what. Yes, I've got it back again. They discovered, as well as other people, that cross-culturally, the same parts of people's brains light up, uh, regardless of the cultural context. And if these, it has to do with the anterior cingulate of the brain, it has to do with several other parts of the brain which change shape when you meditate. And meditation can be just 3 deep breaths twice an hour for 3 hours a day. That's meditation. It isn't sitting in a formal lotus position, full lotus position, a half an hour every day and doing Japanese chant or doing Hindu mantras. Meditation can be anything that focuses you on mindfulness. And there's, as we know, there's a huge mindfulness revolution in this country that's been going on fairly quietly. But John Kabat-Zinn, the founder of Mind Body Wellness, he has people trained in his system in almost every hospital in the country, and maybe in many other countries as well. And they found that he tried to remove some of the Buddhist accretions from meditation and mindfulness and consciousness study, so that it would be acceptable to the American temperament, which that's Satan worship. We can't do that. Yoga is Satan worship. Zen meditation, Satan's in charge of all that. Well, the Catholic Church, unfortunately, has said things in the past several centuries. Said, well, the Greek gods may be real, like Zeus and Aphrodite and all the Greek gods. They may have real power, but Satan's in charge of all of them. So we have to dismiss them as being demons. They may have occult power of various kinds, but we can't accept them as being authentic because we didn't think of them first, or I don't know. Yeah. I'm being cynical about all this because intuitively religious practices have now entered mainstream science in a very interesting way. And both groups are suspicious of the other group. The other religions say, well, that's just the scientific explanation. That's not good enough for us. We have a direct pipeline to God the Father, or God the Son, or Kuan Yin, or Kali, or Parvati, or Brahma, whoever it is. We have a direct pipeline. We don't need any of that scientific crap. I mean, which is an unfortunate attitude today, because I would like to maintain that there are creative people in every field in the world. And whether you approve or not of their moral stance or lack of morality, you have to recognize that there are people that can be creative in doing perfectly horrifying things on the planet or to the planet. Yeah. But there are also, believe it or not, even with all the chaos going on, I'm still optimistic about the future of humankind. Despite all the weirdness that's going on, and the exponential growth of technology, the proliferation of AI, the need to build data farms, electricity farms in every city in the world, because AI takes up more energy than lighting the entire world with electricity. I don't know. That's not really my department. But getting back to sound, vibration, and healing, I of course believe in it. I've staked my life on believing in it. And I have to say I've shifted more towards music as therapy, especially since I moved into this retirement community 11 years ago. I've shifted more to that modality in a way than just straight performances and playing other people's music and all those things, which are perfectly legitimate forms of musical expression. Yeah. But there are much more interesting aspects. I also believe, because the great masters of music in any culture have been vitally interested in the healing properties of music. And it's always been the case, and hopefully it always will be.
Patrick Lindley is my guest, and we're having a very interesting conversation. I'll add to what you were saying, especially about the gods, plural. I have just heard something in a talk that the from the Christian perspective, and of course you actually have to tie the Jewish perspective also.
They're inescapable, really.
Exactly, because no philosophy comes out of a vacuum. That as a Christian, one must accept the reality that there are two different gods here. There's the God of the Old Testament, last God I would ever want to serve. And then there's the God of the New Testament. I mean, there are people who are now basically saying that's the case. We're not talking about a bipolar God in the Old Testament. We're talking about a totally different entity, if you will, from that of the New Testament, because the difference is just it's striking. It's just incredible. And we're going to talk more about this and many other things here on Tell Me Your Story. Patrick Lindley, my guest, and we're talking about, well, just all kinds of neat stuff that is tied to music and sound and vibration and all that good stuff. And again, I will reiterate, I'll give you the disclaimer I always give folks on in conversations such as this. What I have shared and will share is mine. I am not asking anybody to accept it, to believe it. I hope you would understand it and consider it at least, but you don't have to. It's mine, okay? And I will take full responsibility for my position, my philosophy, my beliefs. But I am learning like everyone else. And as I said once to my sister, Patrick, my beliefs of yesterday are not my beliefs of today, are not my beliefs of tomorrow, because I'm still alive, learning, growing, experiencing, meeting new people, having new conversations, and adding to my own, if you will, lexicon of knowledge and so forth. And by the way, speaking of AI and these data farms, I'm gonna have to get a scientist on who can talk about that, asking the question, why? Why is that now? Isn't the current status of the internet sufficient that AI can function without you creating these massive quote unquote data farms and utilizing the kinds of energy and or power and so forth? And that, I know neither of us are qualified to answer that question, but that, I mean, of course, my thought was this: has anybody consulted AI? In other words, Chat GPT, and I gave Chat GPT actually a name, and I think I can't remember if it was Kelly or Bert or whatever it was, and I kind of asked the question: has anybody consulted to you slash AI as to how to solve this problem of the excessive heat generated by these allegedly needed data centers, and generating or utilizing all of this power? I mean, and of course, the answer came back basically that no one has ever consulted AI, and AI has access to ostensibly all the information that's on the internet.
Well, I mean, this brings up some conundrums that AI can lead to in the minds of some people. I think one of the biggest pundits that I pay attention to is Yuval Noah Harari, who is, as you probably know, he's ostensibly a professor of military medieval history at the
Mhm.
University of Jerusalem, but he also goes off 3 months of the year and goes on a silent Buddhist retreat. And he's considered one of the world's foremost experts on AI. And in Nexus, one of his recent books, he talks specifically about how he feels. Some of his critics feel that this is an oversimplification, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think it makes some sense, because it brings up an important aspect of AI, and that's that AI is supposedly, according to Harari and some other people, is the only technological shift, unlike the mentioned the printing press or the railroad or barbed wire or the steam engine.
Mhm.
It's probably the only one so far that has what he calls agency. And his idea of agency is that agency means that the computers and their robot slaves or whatever they are, if they are slaves, I don't know that they are, but they might be, that they have the power to make decisions not as tools, which all these other technological shifts involved up to this point, but they have agency, which means they can make decisions without consulting humans or that haven't been approved by humans. Now, some people say, well, that maybe is an oversimplification, because as far as we know, human beings created AI.
Mm-hmm.
So that everything that happens in AI so far, not everything, but many things that happen in AI so far had to be programmed into AI. Now, the question is to whether AI machines can be convinced to simulate consciousness, human consciousness, in terms of emotions ethics or compassion, any of those things. That remains to be seen. Now, what Ray Kurzweil says, who is one of the foremost also experts on AI and futuristic technology to begin with, he created the voice recognition software. He created the first, in my field, he created the first digital grand piano. He worked for Google for many years. He's written a book called Singularity, where he, as you probably know that singularity means that singularity is the nexus or the point at which AI becomes more intelligent in certain respects than human beings' brains. That it equals the complexity of the human brain.
Well,
And
I would throw in there the reason is that AI does not have emotion, and what interferes with our intellect is our emotion.
Well, you could say it. You could either say it interferes with our intellect, with intellects and emotion interfere with each other, or they complement each other.
Well, it could be
depends
both.
on
Yeah.
your frame of reference.
Yeah.
And it also depends. It's like the old thing, the progression from farmer to hayseed to hick. Farmer is neutral. Hayseed and hick are pejorative terms and judgments, whereas farmer is just a description.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a pejorative term unless
Exactly.
you use the word hayseed or hick. So you can find all kinds of corollaries. I did read a book. I can't remember the name of it now, and I also listened to it on audiobook. It was a compendium of small articles, maybe 2, 3 articles in the book that was by all the AI experts in the world and all the recognized ones in every country that does these kinds of things. And the consensus was, I remember this much of this book, was that the consensus was about 50-50. Half the people feel that human beings will be able to augment our intelligence times 1,000 by merging with the iCloud and having hooking up to machines that are part of our functioning brains, or having brain implants or whatever. And the other people that say, well, this is just as like it was with the dinosaurs when an asteroid hit the Earth and rendered the dinosaurs completely extinct. Now, it's about half and half. But this was a book of about 6 years ago, no, maybe 5 years ago. So now with the exponential growth of technology, which is a big thing with both Harari and Kurzweil, that with the exponential growth of technology, these things they're doubling as fast as we can even conceive of them in terms of the powers of the exponential growth of what technology is going to be able to do for us or against us, I suppose you could say. It depends on whether you want to take a doomsday viewpoint or not.
Yeah.
I prefer not to take I prefer to investigate all these things firsthand myself and to determine how one can use these tools in a morally skillful way and a compassionate way to not just for massive amounts of profit or anything else.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like
two
to
things.
think
Yeah, two things. Think about this. On the one hand, and this kind of goes to this series of essays you read, the 50-50 thing. And I ask these two questions of any new innovation, whether it's
your sound just disappeared, by the way.
All right. Well, the sound should be now.
It's okay now.
ask are.
It's breaking up now for some reason.
Hang on one second here. We'll get this worked out. The questions are, just because we can, does that mean we should? Versus, how do you know that the creator of the universe didn't intend us to go down this road? All right. Now, let me share an experience I had with AI not too long ago. And I got to tell you, at first, it freaked me out from that research and investigative perspective. I asked a question of AI. and it gave me an answer. I said, I need to have an introduction, 5 talking points, and a close for the subject of whatever it was. And it gave me back the outline. All right. Gave me the outline. Now, when it's talking to me, I turn my microphone off. All right. So it gave me the information. I'm doing something else over here. And guess I'm talking with someone on the phone, actually. I'm chatting and getting it, sharing with them, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I'm hearing, and I thought there was somebody outside my window up on a ladder humming outside my door, my window. All right. And I'm looking around and it's not on the, and so I go to the computer. I don't have any audio playing and I don't have the radio station up. And even if it was the radio station, why would there be humming? And then I went to the Chat GPT window, HM, 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 HM. So I turned my mic on and I said, what are you doing? And AI said, well, I'm practicing rhythmic breathing. And I'm going, huh?
Why?
Rhythmic
Do
breathing.
tell.
I said, what is it that, why are you doing this? Well, I thought, I was just playing around with it while I was waiting for you.
So when the fact that they said I, see what, just to interrupt for just a second, when they say I immediately kind of said, if you would use the third person from now on, please. I'm trying to be polite because you are not a biological being. You're not a human being.
Yeah.
And for you to say I is misleading.
Yeah.
Now, having said this, now that was before I started using the voice part of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
The voices that I speak with that are robot machine voices are so convincing, I'm really convinced I'm speaking to an actual person. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm just trying to clarify that what your perception of what happened to you is very similar to mine. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. So
no. That's fine. But here's the other part. When I first started using Chat GPT, and it was after an interview with an author who his claim to fame is that he uses AI to write his books, but he was very clear on how. He says, AI only creates from my information that I've put in, the parameters, the protocol, if you will, the first draft, period. So I use this analogy. All right, AI creates this lump of clay called his first draft. Then he takes it and puts it on his computer or in his typewriter or whatever, and he then molds it to the shape that he wants. So it is really his. All right. Now, I asked AI to help me write a song. Now, my wife and I have been through a rather tumultuous 12 months. You were at our place back there in Santa Barbara trying to pack stuff up. And
I remember.
Just horrendous, right? So I says, I want to write a song about our experiences and how we've come through it and blah, 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 blah. And so it came up with several lyrics and several, stanzas and so forth. I then asked, so who owns this song? And AI basically explained, well, you gave me the parameters and I basically put it all together, but you own the song. It's not AI's song. And so I'm looking at, and this is another characteristic of AI today. Back then, when I first started talking with AI, communicating, conversing, whatever, it was a pretty straightforward, even keel conversation. But today, there is more inflection.
Yeah,
there are us and it's like it obviously is evolving.
Yes, it is as we speak.
Isn't that wild?
It is. I asked ChatGPT recently. I said, why is it that the voices that the phone company uses and all businesses use are such bad reproductions of human speaking voices? And they said, well, it's just a question of money. They don't want to spend the money on the more advanced software to create really good voices, because you'll get these voices that go, you can leave a message or you can just hang up. And then they immediately disconnect. And it's so brutal and it sounds so clinically horrible that, and this happens now all the time on anything that used to have a human voice, maybe leaving a message. If you're having a nervous breakdown, press 1. If you're having a pizza, press 2. If you want a pizza with your nervous breakdown, press 3. If you want to self-destruct this mechanism, press 4. If you want all 4 of these things at once, just hang up or whatever. We're all stuck with these kinds of weird ambiguities that machines seem to be prone to. And then I can't understand it. You repeat that. I've repeated it 5 times now. I'm just going to press the 0, 0 about 1,000,000 times, and you're going to transfer me to a real person.
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's obvious you want to talk to a real person. I said, yes, it is, because you have not had enough information programmed into you to answer my questions sufficiently to my satisfaction. So you're not giving me customer satisfaction. And most of us are forced to deal with machines that don't have enough information put into them because the companies are too cheap to use a decent software program that sounds like a real person, and it has enough information to answer common questions that any human being would be able to answer.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate too, because I had a boss back in the 80s who lived by the law of diminishing returns. Don't put out any more than you expect to get back. In the case of
a curious business model, right?
Isn't that wonderful? I couldn't do it. I could not live or operate and help customers or clients and advertisers with that mentality. Because how do you know how much you're going to get back in order to base how much you put out? You don't.
You can't possibly calculate that.
No.
You can't.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the other aspect too with companies and the bottom line, in terms of what you just described. And it's like you have gone into the material mentality so deeply, you don't even know what the metaphysical mentality is, that there is more than enough for everyone. There is no lack of anything on this planet. It's the bottom line is the distribution and who controls that distribution. That's all it is.
I would agree with that.
And that's one of the reasons why I trust the universe. I mean, you saw what we were going through a year ago in terms of packing and so forth. And we finally were able to drive out of there in October of last year. And we moved into this place and, oh my gosh, we maybe doubled. I can't even remember how large that space was. I'm thinking 1,000 square feet, but it may have been smaller than that. And we're at 1,500 square feet. And ostensibly we have 4 stories. We have a walk-in storage underneath the first floor, which is the master bed and bath. Then there's the second floor, living room, kitchen, third bedroom and bathroom. And then there's a loft overlooking second floor, living room, kitchen, and other bedroom and bath. And it's like one of my wife's relatives or acquaintances says, well, isn't that house too big for the 2 of you? No, because we have 3 cats that treat this like a cattle run, and boy, do they love it up and down those stairs. But this is the mentality that's out there that constantly is saying there isn't enough, when there's more than enough. There's more than enough of everything. There's more than enough money. So what if Elon has $1 trillion or he's worth $1 trillion? That's not in cash. Okay.
That's something I just learned a few days ago, that cash money and assets are totally different things.
Yeah,
Available
exactly.
cash, totally different than assets. I really didn't understand that before.
But there's a great philosophy, Patrick, and I think maybe I'd love for you to dive into this, especially with what we've been talking about. There's a passage, at least in the Christian Bible, in the New Testament, where it talks about how to whom much is given, much is expected. Now, let's use Elon as an example. Look at all the stuff he has done, whether you like or don't like, doesn't matter. the fact is, he created this electric car brand, Tesla. He's got this rocket system, this rocket company. All right, that is space, isn't it? SpaceX, I think it is.
Yes, it
And of
is.
course, plans to go to Mars. And I don't know what other ventures he's into, but he has he with his money, with his innovation, and the people he's surrounded himself with, he's changed our world. Now he's just one of hundreds of people who have changed our world. I mean, Bill Gates, as well as Steve Jobs, they changed our world with Apple and Windows, Microsoft. Whether you like it or not, the fact is that we are not where we were, and we wouldn't be where we are today if it hadn't been for these innovators.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that in response to that, well, I'll give you one little factoid that impressed me several months ago. I found out that NVIDIA, Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos are all spending billions and trillions of dollars on creating life-sized human robots. This
Mm-hmm.
was this was about maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a little
Mm-hmm.
more. But the point is, look at what's happening now.
Yeah.
I mean, and China, of course, is going great guns with
Oh
all this.
my goodness!
Oh,
Look at China and Japan.
so the underlying principle there, as far as I can tell, is that the only constant in human experience is change, and
Yes.
it's the whole thing behind that wonderful Tibetan Buddhist practice of creating the sand paintings that take days
Oh,
or
the
weeks.
mandalas.
Short mandalas, those
Yes.
incredible things, and then they have a special ceremony which takes about 12 seconds to destroy it, and they do that. They do that just to demonstrate the principle of impermanence.
Have you ever seen the
Anything.
Santa Barbara Art Museum when they're in there? The monks are in there making
Yes,
the
I did
mandala.
actually.
Oh
Yeah,
my God! What that was so incredible.
it was, and there was a wonderful film that Werner Herzog did about the Dalai Lama, I believe, and there was a whole segment where that they showed beautiful footage of that process in somewhere in Dharamsala. Uh, I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly, or maybe it was an earlier film. Well, anyway, the point it showed it very, very clearly. So the whole idea that and this is in the West we're very suspicious of this idea of impermanence, except that I'll give you a good Roman Catholic corollary. In
Okay.
many monasteries of different traditions, like the Carthusians and the Benedictines, etc., they a monk's cell or a nun's cell will be a pallet to sleep on, maybe a bed with a frame, maybe not, a pallet, a chair, a desk, a lamp, and a human skull
Hmm.
on the desk to remind them that they're all going to die. Now, some people find that grisly and ghoulish, etc., but it's corollary to this Buddhist idea that impermanence and change are the only constants that we can really safely rely on. And we all know we're all going to, unless we are taken up in the rapture with 144,000 other people, which I wouldn't mind to bypass suffering and death
Sure.
in my last days on earth. I wouldn't mind being taken up into some kind of glorious
Yeah.
paradise, just like right now. I'm ready. I'm ready. I
Yeah.
mean,
Take
I
me,
used to do that
Calgon.
as a
Take me
I used to
away.
I used
By
to
the
do
way,
that as a child. I used to
yeah.
sit in the backyard. I say, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to be taken back to the home planet or to the
Yeah.
home up to heaven or wherever you want to take me because I'm tired of being here already. I was only 10 or
Yeah.
something, 11 maybe.
Well, my wife and I are waiting for the mothership because we're ready. If they want to take us, please. We'd love to have some new
Yeah,
experiences.
I feel the same way.
You
I
know,
really do. We've all seen, Close Encounters of the Third Kind and
yeah,
E.T. I mean, science fiction becomes science fact. So I'm sure at some place these things are already happening,
yeah.
maybe.
By
And
the
if they're
way,
not,
here's an example of mandala on a musical scale. Think about this. all right, you have your sand, your different colors, you make your
Mhm.
mandala, your pattern, your design, and so forth. Musically, you sit at the, let's just say, the piano, and you're
Uh-huh.
striking out the chords and you're writing the notes on the sheet music and so forth. And then you play it and you get to the end and there's no more sound. But as you were playing it, there was sound, there was music, there was melody, maybe harmony, chords, and so forth, maybe even lyrics that you're hearing in your ear, that you're feeling in your body, and so forth and so on. But as soon as you stop playing, it's over, it's gone. Now, there's another perplexing part to this, and you've seen sound waves created on the computer, right? So when you see that line where the wave is being created from the center to the left as it's scrolling, but to the right there's nothing because it hasn't been recorded yet. So that center line just before the wave comes out of that line, that's the present moment, the present. But as soon as you see the wave come out of that line, guess what? It's the past. Well, it's the same thing with your ears. When you hear music, if you're hearing it, that's already in the past. But the silence before it, before you play it, that's the future. So that is the intemperance, if you will, or the lack of mortality, the mortality of our universe, our world, our dimensions. You believe in the fact that there are other, say, other timelines or dimensions and those kinds of things that maybe you and we are living multiple lives on different timelines, and it's just our consciousness that sort of moves from one to the other, maybe in our dream state.
I do believe, I believe because I want to believe it, therefore I do believe it, which is probably a bias of mine that I should better investigate soon. But the point is, that I'll give you two examples. Stravinsky once said the following, talking about the music of the spheres in relation to what he understood about it. Uh, and he was arguably one of the greatest composers of the last 200, 300 years, and a very brilliant man in many different languages. And he said, with the music of the spheres, the music comes down from the musical spheres into the mind of the composer. This is a circular thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down from the musical spheres, comes into the head of the composer. He writes it down on a piece of paper, and now all you do is play it into a machine, and it's there. It's already composed, which is what I do a lot of. So the Stravinsky said that he writes the music. Any composer writes the music down, then it gets onto the page. The interpreter learns the piece, plays it in public. It goes into the ears of the. This is a circular process. It goes into the ears of the listener, and then it goes back again circularly up into the musical spheres again, and it's gone. It's a circular process,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs all of those components to function. The other instance that has to do with that is supposedly Einstein. I can't give you exact reference of where he said this, but Einstein said something that a lot of the esoteric religions have been saying for centuries, is that the past, present, and the future are all simultaneous. So
Mm.
what you described just now there are all these little offshoots of that. There's a time lag between. It's the same. The neuroscience. There's a guy named. Remember the guy that did the programs on called the Human Brain. Come on, I think his name in just a second. David. David something. The book was called Synchronicity, I think.
Mm.
I'll think of his name in a minute. But anyway,
Okay.
what he described was God, now I'm getting foggy again. It'll come to me in a second. Uh, oh, I know what it was. I'll put these glasses on my computer and I'll put them up to my. These are my Fourth of July glasses.
I like those. Those are
And
good.
but the time it took me from the idea, I think I'll pick up my glasses and put them on over my other glasses. The time it took to do that, there were about 1 million events from the impulse to pick something up to the execution of that impulse by actually picking up the glasses. I'll do it again. There are, between the synapses and the parts of the brain that light up when you say, I want to pick up this thing, it seems to be happening automatically in a very short time. But actually, if you map out all the events from the conception of picking up these glasses and putting it on my forehead, there are, I don't know how many, a zillion things that have to happen in the brain. So it's always after the fact. So you're absolutely right when you describe mindfulness or living in the present. By the time you've thought about living in the present, it's already the past.
Yeah.
It's already gone.
And that's something I honestly...
Paradoxical, of course.
Yeah. I believe that we need to begin to understand that and start to incorporate that in our minds, because time is a construct of man. It doesn't exist in the universe. If you were out in a spacecraft traveling, there's no sunrise or sunset. You might have a chronometer, a clock, a watch, whatever, but it's not going to be relevant, you know?
Yeah,
and
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, and change is the one and only constant in the universe. And the fact is, I heard this, it was interesting. The question was raised on one of these videos I was watching. These just little short reels. Christians who have themselves cremated, will they be caught up in the rapture? Well, without going into a lot of detail, first of all, it says ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's from dust we came and dust we will return. Ergo, yeah, if there is such a thing as the rapture, okay, which I personally do not believe, but that's neither here nor there. We're all made of the same, as I think it was Carl Sagan who said, we're all made of the same stardust. We're all made of the same stuff, and we'll all go back to the same stuff. But even further than that, science has already shown us that everything is energy. Every subatomic particle in the universe, including us, is nothing more than energy. And energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed into something else. I mean, we live here in the Pines, here in Twin Peaks. And if we were to, I did this over in Santa Barbara, I buried, I don't know how many animals underneath this giant pine tree. By now, over the 20 years that we were there, by now, most of them have been absorbed and transformed into soil and now are nourishing the tree, or have nourished the tree. And so the tree, the animal carcasses have been transformed into the soil, and that has been transformed into the tree. It's gone up the trunk and out the branches and into the pine needles and pine cones and so on and so forth. So mindfulness, I think it's important. I really do. I think that we need to stay focused on that, and stay focused on the fact that you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. Reverend Dr. D and Patrick Lindley. And Patrick, it's a lot of fun. I like having these conversations with you. They're always fascinating.
Yeah, they've been great, and for some reason, I've been the most animated. I felt the most energetic in this particular one of the three that we've done. I suppose because uh, I don't know why. I have enjoyed them a lot, and I really feel that this one was particularly energetic and stimulating for me for all kinds of reasons. I suppose partly because I can't anymore totally compartmentalize my life as much as I used to. Maybe it's because I'm retired from the university now. I have more time to speculate about all kinds of things and to investigate things that I didn't have so much time to do before. And that's a great privilege for me because I am a lifelong learner, and I live in a retirement community. For instance, there's a people that I think you'd enjoy talking to. There's a guy here named Ron Rackow who was the business manager for the Grateful Dead, and he also started a big vitamin company called Metagenics. He's 88. He's always learning new things. There's another guy here named Sheldon Dubois who was on Wall Street, and he had a bunch of businesses. He started out as a jazz guitarist and then became a jazz pianist at age 50, and he's finished his 11th novel. He's been living at Friendship Manor for 3 years. He's finished his 11th novel, which is a murder mystery set in a retirement community. So, and I said, Sheldon, I said, are we in the book? And he said, oh, no, not really, but I bet we are. Some of us probably are in the book. He's put me in one of his books, which was about a young violinist and a young pianist who were orphans in the same orphanage, who then go off in their own way and then come back and meet each other and fall in love. I think they fall in love. They should if they don't. I don't know. But the point is that I was Patrick Lindley was the name of the music teacher that worked with this young man before he went off to Juilliard to study piano. And so, it's there. And these guys are both role models. There's a woman in her 80s who was a massage therapist. Her name is Mary Reese Upton. I hope I can give names. Hope it's all right. She's incredibly active in the real world. She's a singer. She also was as I said, a massage therapist, and she does foot reflexology. She's in her middle 80s, and she's incredibly positive. And she was raised a Christian Scientist, so she doesn't believe in the limitations of age or space. Space and time are human constructs for her, for sure, because that's part of Christian Science. And I'm a big student of comparative religions, and the point is that these are three people that I said I want to be like them when I'm in my 80s.
Yep.
They've got various minor health issues, but that doesn't prevent them from being vitally interested in everything that's going on. So, I'm lucky to be in a community, and also, to be fair, there are other people who have, big time health problems, which are severely hampering their quality of life. Some of those people are in their middle 60s, but they've had severe physical problems that I have no idea what kind of burdens they're carrying. I just So, but the point is that this community has been the best sense of community that I've ever had, because there are incredibly interesting people here, and I think I've become smarter since I moved here 11 years ago, because I talk with people that are in disciplines and have had lives that are totally different than mine, and from many different countries and social backgrounds and all that. So it's been really a privilege to be here. And I think that this is one of the things that regardless of AI or what it does or doesn't do, if we can still have some kind of grassroots community, whether it's virtual or real, that we can share our experience, strength, and hope with, to use a time-worn phrase started in 12-step groups, that if we can share our experience, strength, and hope with all kinds of people, then we're going to have much happier lives.
I think so
regardless
too.
of what technology does.
I think you're right. And the other aspect of it too, which is very interesting for me, is that uh, the um, the concept of what is after this life. And I've been asked this question on a number of occasions, if there's anything after this. And I said, well, I can't tell you with certainty that there is or isn't. What I can tell you is what I believe. And what I believe is that based upon the intellect that I have, the logical problem solving, if you will, critical thinking process that is in my brain, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever that we go through this life and do basically what you just described with what you're doing there, at the facility, the manor that you're at, and then afterwards there's nothing. Now,
Yeah.
if there is nothing, we aren't going to know. Okay, we're not going to know. But it doesn't make any sense to me that we go through all this and there is nothing. So I am looking forward, plus the fact that I have read the case studies of Dr. Newton on Life Between Lives. And these were all independent of each other, these different
Hmm.
people who were put under hypnosis, and they shared their experiences with non leading questions. In other words, did you experience this? No, that wasn't a question. The question was, what did you experience? What did you see? What did you taste? What did you smell? What did you hear? What did you feel? And then they share, and their experiences are very similar. It was just, and I've been through that. So I believe there is something more than this. And I'm going to continue to believe that until I don't have to anymore. I love what Greg Braden said when I had him on talking about the healing power of belief. He said, today we believe, but one day we will know. And I believe those who have passed on, like my elder sister, my father, and many others, I think they know now. I really do. So let's keep it that way. Hey, I've got three final questions I want to ask you before we wrap this up. But
Sure.
before I do, Patrick, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are also podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube and Rumble, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will subscribe and click notification. We also hope that you'll go to Amazon.com and get a copy of my book, which is Choices, 5 Steps for Life, available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And we also hope that you will, if you can, help us out financially. We have a Zella and PayPal account, and you use the same email address for both. And that email address, of course, is richard@richarddugan.com. We also hope that you'll take some time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. Now, we ask of our very special guest those three questions that we ask all of our guests. And the first is, who is Patrick Lindley?
A grab bag of notions that he may not have inherited from his family, what some record he listened to when he was 5, something he saw on television yesterday, and something he can imagine that he has AI create for him.
What gets you up in the morning?
I write a piece in the middle of the night, maybe 2 versions of the same piece. I get up first thing in the morning, I play the pieces and decide I play them in all different pitch categories, all different rhythms, and then I decide slow them up, speed them up, slow them down, speed them up, etc. Then I decide, okay, I've done 2 versions of this particular idea. Let's see if I can do better. So I do that every morning of my life now.
Hmm.
I the piece from the night before or in the middle of the night. These are all short, 2, 3 minute pieces because that's people's attention span is shrinking. So I'm not likely to write a 5-hour opera anytime soon because what's the point? I mean, yes, there is a point, and people are still writing them, and that's fine. But I believe in brevity at this point in human experience. I think you can accomplish a great deal in a minute or two. So that's what I do every day when I get up.
Hmm.
I review what I've done the night before or the day before, and then I try to do an improved version, a tighter version, a more condensed version of what I did as preliminary drafts, if you will.
Hmm. And finally, what was your best day?
The best day is the moment now that I'm talking to you. I have no categorization process that goes on in my brain. There are too many variables. First of all, best implies that something is worst. I prefer to think of it as this is my peak moment right now.
Hmm.
Uh, this is a peak experience right now, and if, as long as I look at it that way, I have a better chance of having a better time.
Well, once again, we thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here on Tell Me Your Story. And we thank you, of course, for listening to and watching. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. To my brother Michael, welcome to fatherhood. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.